It's time to break down another issue of DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths. We're going to give you a primer as to who all the new characters are that appear in this issue. Up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics. Thanks for stopping by. Please like, comment, subscribe if you are enjoying this this content. Follow us on the other socials. I'm on Instagram at Bronzeville_comics. I do Whatnot sales, Bronzeville_comics. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And there's a link in the description. If you're not on Whatnot, you can get $10 off your first purchase. If you sign up there, there's also a link to my eBay store as well as my email. So in this series, this is the part 4 where we'll be breaking down issue number 4 of the DC limited series Crisis on Infinite Earths, published in 1985 and 1986, written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by George Perez. If you want to go back and watch any of the previous 3 episodes, we're going to be breaking down issues 1, 2, and 3, and essentially discussing the backstories of the characters that are appearing in Crisis, so you kind of get an understanding of who's who that is being used in the narrative, especially the fact that we had a Crisis on Infinite Earth story in the Arrowverse on the CW network, and we're getting a Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline in DC animated form. Obviously, it's going to be different. They're not going to be including all these characters, but if you've ever read the trade paperback, the digital copy, or actual copies of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and you're not well versed in DC Comics history, it's very easy to get confused. Now, in episode 1, we kind of break down the difference between each of the parallel Earths that had been introduced in DC continuity. In this episode, we're going into issue number 4, and we'll go page by page, panel by panel, breaking down the characters that are being introduced in the first time in the narrative here. A lot of the characters were introduced in issues 1 through 3. We'll just kind of gloss over those, but we'll go over first appearances and how their history relates leading up to this comic. So let's just dive on in to the comic, and we're going to start with the cover. We only see 3 characters on the cover, and these are all characters that were new for the narrative. We talked about them in episode number 1. They were in issue number 1. Harbinger, Pariah, and the Monitor. And Harbinger has killed the Monitor. It's apparent. Now, here we go. Page 1, we see July 1985, and they reference the red skies. That was a reference that was used quite a bit in Crisis on Infinite Earths and on the CW show. And it was used a lot in a lot of the tie-in stories in other DC publications around this time. Red skies are hardly noticed. Kind of, you see on the right-hand side this antimatter wave that is absorbing more and more of the city. And we see in the foreground Supergirl. This is the Kara Zor-El version of Supergirl. She made her first appearance in Action Comics 252 in May of 1959, created by Otto Binder and Al Plastino. Interestingly, Binder, the writer, had also created, when he worked at Fawcett Comics in the 1940s, Mary Marvel, who, very similar to Supergirl, was a female version of an established male superhero with a uniform that was almost identical, except it was a skirt instead of trunks. She is Superman's cousin. And what happened was when Krypton was destroyed, the city that her parents were living on, Argo City, remained intact with its own air bubble. And so it drifted in space for a number of years. Her parents, Zor-El, the brother of Superman's father, Jor-El, falls in love with Allura. They have a daughter, and after a while, Argo City is no longer viable. So much like his brother did, he creates a spaceship, sends his daughter, now a teenager, off to Earth to meet her cousin, who's now grown to adulthood. They're able to, through some sort of intergalactic television, see Superman's exploits and send her there knowing that she's going to get those abilities. When she comes to Earth, Superman protects her, puts her in an orphanage under the name Linda Lee, Midvale Orphanage. She's eventually adopted by the Danvers family and becomes Linda Danvers. And was a backup mostly in Action Comics in those years. And then in Adventure Comics 381, she becomes the main feature in that book and holds that position till issue 424, when she then gets her own 10-issue series in 1972. And then later on in 1982, she'd have a 23-issue series, The Daring New Adventures of Supergirl, which kind of leads us right up until Crisis. She had many other appearances throughout the time as a member of the Superman family, so she was seen fairly frequently. Page 2. So now we see Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. Her first appearance was in Detective Comics 359. In January of 1967, she was created by Gardner Fox and Carmine Infantino with a nod to William Dozier, one of the producers of the Batman television series. It was Dozier who kind of wanted DC to create a female hero that he could put into the television show. And it was later on in 1967, September, when Yvonne Craig premiered as the character Batgirl in the third and final season of the TV series. Much like in the comics, she is the daughter of Gotham City Police Commissioner James Gordon, and she is a librarian. In the first story, which was actually an unaired quasi-pilot made for the character for the TV show, she helps Batman defeat the Killer Moth. And she became a backup detective. She was in Batman Family with Robin, where they had these adventures together and had a little bit of a romantic relationship. They were referred to as the Dynamite Duo. In 1972, she became a member of Congress, was elected to the House of Representatives from Gotham City, and maintained kind of a backup status for many years as part of the Bat family. So, and there had been crossovers between Supergirl and Batgirl as they had established a friendship much like Superman and Batman did. So we see this plane heading towards the antimatter and falling apart. Supergirl goes to save it just in the nick of time. Batgirl doubts herself because she doesn't have the powers that Supergirl does. Now we go to the bottom set of panels, the East Hampton estate of Steve Dayton, the world's fifth richest man. Steve Dayton was the superhero Mento, who first appeared in Doom Patrol 91 in November of 1964, created by Arnold Drake and Bruno Promiani. He created a helmet which enhanced his own mental abilities, unfortunately had the side effect of basically causing mental disease. And that was the subject. He becomes an alcoholic at this point in time. But he was an associate of the Doom Patrol, married Rita Farr, Elastigirl, and they adopted Beast Boy. Eventually, when the Doom Patrol, including Elastigirl, are killed by General Zal and Madame Rouge in their final issue of their series, it sends Dayton into a depression. He is still the adoptive father of Beast Boy, but their relationship is very strained. And he also invented a form of uranium known as promethium, which was used, it's almost like akin to adamantium or vibranium in Marvel Comics. It's this, metal that is stronger than most. But we see him here referring to John Constantine. We go to the next page, and we see John Constantine there smoking a cigarette, which is his trademark, although just wearing a suit jacket, not an overcoat. But John Constantine, his first appearance was in Saga of the Swamp Thing number 37 in June of 1985, so just before this. This is a brand new character at the time. He was created by Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, and John Tottleman. His physical appearance was based on the musician Sting, but he does have a connection to Swamp Thing, to the mystical part of the DC universe, and so we kind of have these disparate characters Constantine is British. He did have his own series, Hellblazer, which ran for many years, eventually under the Vertigo line. But at this point, he's a brand new character. None of us are going to die. Not you, not me, certainly not this Earth. I'm hardly naive. I can sense what's happening here. And there indeed, friend, I know what's happening to one and all. And especially to the Swamp Thing. Yes, especially to him. We'll talk about Swamp Thing when he actually makes an appearance later on in the series. So now the antimatter sweeps over the world known as Earth-1, even as it is finishing its destructive path across Earth-6. After that, only 5 others remain. Somewhere he laughs a deep and heady laugh. So Pariah comes again at the end of this page to witness the destruction of another Earth, just as he did the destruction of Earth-3 in issue number 1. So here he is on Earth-6, and we're introduced to the heroes of Earth-6, who are brand new creations by Wolfman and Perez. We have Lord Volt, who we see here, and he's wondering what Pariah is doing, and the energy backfires on him. We can see here it's technologically a little more advanced society, I guess, a little more science fiction-y than Earth-1 that we're used to. And then we see his wife, Lady Quark. And they're, of course, wondering if Pariah is the one that's bringing the destruction. And then we get their daughter, who was known as Princess Fern. And they refer to as Lyanna. And she's stuck, and then she is killed. Very quickly. Her first appearance, and then she's killed just a few panels later. It also encompasses Lord Volt, and then Pariah saves Lady Quark. So she does become a part of the narrative going forward, the lone survivor of Earth-6. Again, we had never seen Earth-6 before. This is the first appearance of Earth-6 and of these characters in this issue of Crisis. Now we go to the Monitor. My enemy comes even closer. With the death of Earth-1, he shall gain that much more powerful that none will be powerful enough to stop him. But there's still one chance, my new warrior. And he had referred to this in a previous issue. And we see coming in here Kamio Hoshi, who is a scientist in Japan of Earth-1. We see her talking to her father and being a little bit curt with him and wondering what's happening on the star Vega. See Omega Men 26. We haven't even been introduced to the Omega Men, but they're from the Vegan galaxy, or the Vegan solar system. And there's this light heading directly toward me. Yag! The father's looking for his daughter. My daughter's gone. It was the antimatter cloud. And then we cut to the Monitor. Even now, she's being recreated. And then Harbinger. I feel him, Monitor, controlling me, filling me with hate for you. I must destroy you, Monitor, for I can do nothing else. Alexander Luthor, the son of the Luthor and Lois Lane of Earth-3, who has antimatter in his body. Harbinger is going to kill him now, and he's aged very quickly from a baby to a teenager. Monitor told me what was going to happen. My heart reaches out for her struggles to resist the other one's calling. She is in pain, for she does not realize that by killing the Monitor, she was actually serving his needs. Go, Lila, do what you must. You and I have a destiny we must fulfill. So what Wolfman and Perez have been doing all along is interweaving the skeleton, the structure of the plot through the characters of the Monitor, Harbinger, Pariah, Alexander Luthor, Psycho Pirate, and then interspersing that with how these antimatter waves are affecting all Earths in the multiverse throughout all of history. Now we see the shadowy figure and the Psycho Pirate, and they're looking at the exploits of the Red Tornado. The Red Tornado was an android who first appeared in Justice League of America number 64 in April of 1968, a few months before a different red-skinned android appeared in a superhero team comic. He was created by the scientist T.O. Morrow, and on Earth-2, as Morrow was a villain, to destroy the Justice Society from within And the android thought that he was the original Red Tornado. The original Red Tornado was a woman known as Ma Hunkel, who first appeared in All-American Comics #3, created by Sheldon Mayer. Now, in issue number 20 of that series, Ma Hunkel donned a costume of sorts, like red long johns and shorts and a cooking pot on her head, and became the Red Tornado. She was included in All-Star Comics #3, kind of comedically, as a reservist member of the Justice Society, but did not have any more appearances throughout the rest of the Golden Age or in the Silver or Bronze Age. Right? The only other appearance really that the Ma Hunkel Red Tornado had was in a pinup in a Justice League comic of all the members of the Justice Society. But this Red Tornado thinks that they're Ma Hunkel. Now, Ma Hunkel is also, later on, has a granddaughter, Cyclone, but that's much later on in DC history. So this Red Tornado eventually becomes a hero and helps the Justice League and the Justice Society defeat Tio Morrow. In another one of the JLA-JSA crossovers in 1972, as the JLA and JSA have to go to different time periods to rescue members of the Seven Soldiers of Victory, Red Tornado sacrifices himself to destroy the Nebula Man, who was like this giant hand that was about to crush Earth. He took the cosmic rod that the Seven Soldiers of Victory had designed and killed the Nebula Man and seemingly died. That was in Justice League of America 102. 3 issues later, shadowy figure in the background helping members of the Justice League, and it turns out in Justice League 106 we find that he wasn't killed, but he was sent through a rift in dimensions from Earth 2 to Earth 1, and then he joins the Justice League. And Red Tornado's powers are basically he can turn his lower body or his arms in a cyclone shape and create these mini tornadoes. Now, it's later retconned prior to this that Red Tornado was the embodiment of an air elemental that they originally thought was a tornado champion from the planet Ran, who had appeared in an Adam Strange story in Mystery in Space number 61 in August of 1960. But that's the Red Tornado we know at this point in time. It's funny, in Justice League 110, he did get this new costume as a Christmas present, and he eventually took on the human persona. Even though he's an android, the human persona of John Smith, develops this romantic relationship with a woman, Kathy Sutton, and they adopt a daughter, Tyra. And that's and at certain points in Justice League history, he was destroyed and thought killed, and they brought him back. But now he's brought into this dimension, just plucked by the shadowy figure, and says, "You're the Psycho Pirate." The thing is, why are you brought here? More than just your Earth android. Now come, we have a universe to destroy. Now, it's always been kind of a trope in the Red Tornado stories that since he doesn't have human emotions, he can't be controlled that way. And he can't be controlled by Psycho Pirate. So, obviously, Red Tornado is being used for maybe a greater purpose later on in the narrative. So now we go to another of these towers placed at different points in history and on different Earths. This is the first time we have one of these on Earth 2, and it's in the Arthurian Round Table days, Camelot. So we're introduced to 2 characters that were active at this point in time as Killer Frost and Firestorm, who we had met in issue number 1, are dispatched to check on the tower, and the Psycho Pirate making Killer Frost, Louise Lincoln, the second Killer Frost, fall in love with Firestorm, is still being kind of played out as a character piece here. But what we see in the window is the villain Vandal Savage from Earth 2. First appearance was in Green Lantern Volume 1, Number 10, the Alan Scott volume, December of 1943. Created by Alfred Bester and Martin Odell. He was described as a million-year-old Cro-Magnon. later on, he's only 50,000 years old, and later on, he's not really Cro-Magnon, he's human, but he comes across this glowing meteorite that gives him the powers of immortality. Now, how those powers of immortality played out over the years, was he indestructible? Was he just very long-lived? Different writers have taken different tacks on it, but he was originally Green Lantern villain, and then he was a member of the Injustice Society and appeared again in All-Star Comics 37, and then came back in the Silver Age in Flash 137, and was in Earth 2 stories kind of throughout, intermittently throughout the rest of the Silver and the Bronze Age. Then, so he's living, because he had lived since prehistoric times, he's living here in Camelot. And we are introduced to Sir Justin the Shining Knight and his winged horse Victory. Shining Knight's first appearance in Venture Comics 66 in September of 1941. He's created by Craig Flessel. A few months later, he was a member of the Seven Soldiers of Victory in their first appearance in Leading Comics #1, and continued with the Seven Soldiers through their 14 issues. His origin was he was a knight of the Round Table, witnessed the murder of Guinevere's cousin Sir Fallon by Blunderbore, and he then sought to defeat Blunderbore. He rescued Merlin from a magical tree, and then Merlin bestowed upon him powers of this a sword, this golden, magical, impenetrable armor, and gave his horse wings, made him a Pegasus. And so he continued in Golden Age stories. Again, his first appearance was in Adventure 66. He was continuously in Adventure through 125, and then intermittently, probably about every other issue through 166. And a lot of those later issues in the 50s were drawn by Frank Frazetta, which is kind of interesting, and they were collected in a couple of Frazetta comics in the early 80s. He was a member of the Seven Soldiers of Victory. And the Seven Soldiers of Victory, when they were brought back in Justice League 100 through 102, it was explained that they defeated the Nebula Man, but in doing so, they were time-tossed. And then they had to be rescued and brought back to present day by members of the Justice League Justice Society. He was one of those members that was rescued and brought back to current day. Had a few adventures that were published along those times, but he had a bigger role because his 1940s incarnation was a regular member of the All-Star Squadron. He was based in England, and it was the bodyguard of Winston Churchill, but also developed a romantic relationship with the second Firebrand, Annette Riley, who we met in issue #1 of Crisis. But this is the Camelot version of Sir Justin, before he becomes a member of the Seven Soldiers of Victory. If you can keep that straight, good luck. The Shadow Demons come out of the tower, as they have before. Firestorm and Killer Frost attempt to fight them. Sir Justin uses his magic sword, and the Shadow Demons merge to become this giant thing, and we see that on all 5 of these towers, and we are reintroduced to characters that we had seen in the previous 3 issues. Cyborg and Firebrand are back in the Old West with the Western characters, Johnny Thunder, Jonah Hex, Batlash. Obsidian and Arion are in ancient Atlantis. Superman of Earth 2 and Dawnstar are in the post-apocalyptic future of Kamandi. And then the final panel, we see Geoforce and Dr. Polaris in Markovia in World War II with Sergeant Rock and members of Easy Company. And maybe that's Jeb Stewart. I'm not quite sure. Now we're brought back to present day. The previous issue, we'd seen that the New Teen Titans and the Outsiders were battling this together. Now this other tower appears, and now we see, speaking Japanese was a convention at the time where they would use these greater than and less than symbols around the words to show that someone was speaking another language. And what Starfire references is it's a woman in a costume like Dr. Light's. So here we have the character that we were introduced to several pages ago, Kimiyo Hoshi, who becomes the second Dr. Light. The first Dr. Light was Arthur Light, a villain whose first appearance was in Justice League of America #12 in June of 1962. And that Dr. Light was kind of a universal foe used in all sorts of different series. He went up against Green Lantern, the Teen Titans, the Justice League a few times, the Outsiders, the New Teen Titans, Batman and Supergirl, Flash. So he was around a lot, and he was referenced to. So now we have the new Dr. Light, her first appearance right here. So she's using her light powers. And she kind of takes this smartest person in the room view. I tell you, this world is populated by morons. You can understand me, so listen, already hundreds of universes have been destroyed. Now the antimatter sweeps through our universe, and only I can help save us. Do you understand? Yes, I do. And what you say only confirms my worst fears. So many of us, with and without superpowers, have worked for so long and so hard to make the Earth a good place to live. Now this happens. Well, what can I do to save our world? Tell me, and I'll sacrifice my own life if need be. And then at the bottom, page 16, we see this kind of ancient architecture as the antimatter is sweeping somewhere else. We're on Paradise Island, the home of the Amazons. And here in this kind of purplish robe is Princess Diana of the Amazons, who we know as Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman first appeared in All-Star Comics number 8 back in 1941, but this is the Earth 1 version of Wonder Woman. And her first appearance is credited as being in Wonder Woman number 98 in May of 1958. The original was created by William Moulton Marston and Harry G. Peter, but the Wonder Woman is continuously published from Golden Age all the way through. So those characters, when we make a demarcation, it's rather arbitrary, and it was just a retelling of her origin, which is not much of a change from the origin she had in 1941, where Steve Trevor is just changed from World War II, is a pilot who crashes near Paradise Island. They rescue him, heal him. She falls for him. She is the daughter of Queen Hippolyta, who we see here in the foreground in the blue robe, the leader of Paradise Island and the leader of the Amazons. And so Queen Hippolyta decides that they're going to have a contest to determine which of the Amazons will accompany Steve Trevor back to man's world. Well, she wears a mask so nobody recognizes her, and Princess Diana wins the contest and accompanies Steve Trevor back to man's world. She does fall in love with him, and their romance is kind of always back and forth, very sort of unrequited, I would say, for many years. And but the Silver Age version is a founding member of the Justice League of America. And in the early 1970s, the Amazons needed to go to another dimension to restore their magic powers. Plot device. They got rid of the Amazons, and in doing so, Wonder Woman decided to stay behind on Earth, but without the Amazons also on Earth, she lost her powers. So for 2 years, the Wonder Woman comics were a Wonder Woman without powers. Eventually, she got her powers back. She had to prove herself in, I think it was 12 issues, sort of like the 12 labors of Hercules, to earn her way back into the Justice League because, she's Wonder Woman. You can't just accept her right away, right? So she earns her way back and becomes a member of the JLA again. At a point in time in the 70s when the Wonder Woman TV show was on, the first season of that TV show took place during World War II. And the pilot very much mirrored the early origin of Wonder Woman. And so what DC Comics did was they were telling the Earth 2 stories at that time, so she had a break again from her own stories. And that kind of leads us up to, and then we go back to the Monitor satellite, and Pariah shows up. And Pariah kind of knows about what's going on, but the Monitor knows it's going to happen anyway. Pariah wonders why, and we see these cuts to Firestorm and Killer Frost and Shining Knight. And then Pariah asks about the machines. Those machines are yours? I saw one like that in Atlantis. What is it? With prayer, the salvation of all life. Now we see a 2-page spread. And the Monitor tells us what's going on. Earth 1 and Earth 2 are set to perish next. Their fates inextricably linked together. Because those are the ones where most of our stories have come from. The fury is worse now. First it was the skies growing red, then the storms and weather, now the cosmic disturbances which raged across both universes. The universe was split apart at the dawn of time, each world weaker than the whole it was meant to be. The worlds are separated by vibration and time. My machines will bring them together. And we can see in the middle all these Earths kind of cracking apart. So there's a combination of what we have going on in each of these panels of flashbacks to the stories that we had kind of been set up with, and then introduced to some new characters. So, first panel is the Old West. We had seen those characters in the previous issue with Cyborg and Firebrand, and the Western heroes. Then the next panel is Under the Ocean, and we see three characters that are somewhat familiar. The first one on the left, the mermaid, is Lori Lemaris, who was a romantic interest of Superman, and Superman always seemed to fall for girls with double L initials. Her first appearance was in Superman 129 in May of 1959. She was created by Bill Finger and Wayne Boring, and eventually it was described that her Atlantis was Tritonus, as opposed to Poseidonus, which is where Aquaman is from, but that wasn't anything that they worried about at the time. And the story was that she was interested in the surface world, and she attended Metropolis University at the same time as Clark Kent. She wore a blanket around her legs to cover up her fin, and so just thought that, and she was in a wheelchair, just thought that she was wheelchair bound. And so Clark Kent falls in love with her, is going to give up being Superman, but she must return to Atlantis. She appears again throughout Superman comics, appeared quite a bit over the course of the next 16 years at this point, and actually also appeared in Superboy stories where it was made that Superboy had previously met her. In the middle is her then husband, Ronal, who appeared first in Superman 135, just 6 issues later, in February of 1960, created by Jerry Siegel and Wayne Boring. Lori had some sort of affliction, and Superman had to travel the universe to find someone to cure it. He found a scientist a scientist merman on another planet, and then brought him to help cure Lori. Bing, bang, boom. They hit it off. They get married. And then the third character in the blue top and the cutoffs with the white hair is a character, Dolphin, a very mysterious character who didn't have a lot of background at this point in time. Her first appearance was in Showcase number 79, December 1968. She was created by J. Scott Pike. She only had a few appearances subsequently. She appeared in Showcase 100, which was a story that was an amalgam of all the heroes that had appeared in the first 99 issues of Showcase. So she was one of them. And then she was a member of the Forgotten Heroes, which also included like Animal Man, Cave Carson, Rip Hunter, just a lot of other characters. They had 2 appearances in Action Comics, and then 2 appearances in DC Comics Presents. We go to the next panel, and this is in Commandy's time with Dawnstar and Earth 2 Superman. And then we go to the panel below that. This is Earth 1, and from left to right, we see Zatanna in her third costume. This was a costume she was wearing at the time. Zatanna's first appearance was in Hawkman number 4 in November of 1964, created by Julius Schwartz, Gardner Fox, and Murphy Anderson. She is the daughter of Zatara, who, the Earth 2 version of Zatara, made his first appearance in Action Comics number 1, and was in Action Comics for many issues after that. Basically, she's going on a quest to find her father, and in the Silver Age issues, she also appeared with in the Atom series, in Green Lantern, in a Detective Comics Elongated Man story, and then finally finds her father in Justice League of America number 51. She was a frequent guest star with Supergirl, with Flash, with a lot of other characters, and then joins the Justice League in Justice League of America 161. She is a magician who is her mother, Cindella, we later discover was a part of this Homo Magi, magic wielders, and Zatara, and then Zatanna like him, as well as a few other characters, all created by Fred Gardner, who created Zatara, all have the ability to invoke magic by speaking backwards. So in Zatanna's word balloons, it's always, you just have to read them backwards to understand what she's meaning. And then we see another mystical character in the foreground here. That is Blue Devil. Blue Devil made his first appearance in Firestorm number 24 in June of 1984, created by Dan Mishkin, Gary Cohn, and Paris Cullins. It was one of which the New Teen Titans also were a part of, one of these inserts that DC put into a lot of the books in that era as previews. He then got his own series shortly after that ran for 31 issues and was running at the time of Crisis, also had an annual. So Blue Devil was a stuntman who had this cybernetic kind of exoskeleton to help him do stunts and be like the main character in this action sequence. When two other members of the crew were kind of fooling around with the mystic arts and some of the demon, the exoskeleton gets magically grafted onto Blue Devil, and that's who he is. He is the Blue Devil. So he was in his own series at the time. We then go to the right, and we follow the lightning bolt, and we see Airwave. This is the third Airwave. It is Harold Hal Jordan, a cousin of Green Lantern Hal Jordan. Made his first appearance in Green Lantern 100 in January of 1978, created by Denny O'Neil and Alex Saviak. And he is the son? I believe he is the son of Larry Jordan, who was the original Airwave back in the golden age of comics. His first appearance in Detective Comics 60 back in February of 1942. Larry Jordan created a helmet that harnessed the basically radio waves, because I guess the writers were amazed at the time that like these signals could be sent through the radio. Harnessed the radio waves and like created electricity out of it. He passed it on to his son. And actually, Airwave had a backup in Action Comics for a while. He made some appearances in Green Lantern, being related to Hal Jordan. And then at the top, we see Hawkman and Hawkwoman. And this is Earth 1 version. After Crisis, the Hawkman Hawkwoman continuity gets very, very convoluted. But there was a Golden Age Hawkman and Hawkwoman, and much like The Flash, the Green Lantern, the Atom, more science fiction-based origin to Hawkman of the Silver Age, the Earth 1 version. Hawkman and Hawkwoman are Qatar and Shiera Hull of the planet Thanagar. Their first appearances in Brave and the Bold, number 34, in February-March 1961, created by Gardner Fox and Joe Kubert. They were police officers on the planet Thanagar, and all the police officers in Thanagar have wings and hawk helmets. It was the Silver Age. So they come to Earth to learn Earth's policing techniques. They take on the guises of Carter and Shiera Hall, who are museum curators, which allows them to access to swords and maces and these weapons that he often uses in his adventures. He became a member of the Justice League. He had his own 27-issue series that ran in the 1960s. The art most of the time was with Murphy Anderson and included the first appearance of Zatanna in issue number 4. After his own series was canceled, he had a co-series, Atom and the Hawkman, that ran, I think was an extension of the Atom comic. It ran for, I think it was six issues, maybe 6 or 8 issues, somewhere around there. And then he was a backup often and a member of the Justice League, left the Justice League for a little while and then came back. And eventually they allowed Hawkwoman, who was originally known as Hawkgirl because, full-grown women were always called girls in the comics, Invisible Girl, Hawkgirls, etc. She becomes Hawkwoman, but the Justice League did away with their rule of duplicating superpowers and let Hawkwoman join prior to this. Now, we go up to the top right, and we see 4 characters on Earth 2. The first one is the character Northwind. His first appearance was in All-Star Squadron 25 in September of 1982, created by Roy Thomas and Jerry Ordway as a member of Infinity Incorporated. He is the mixed son of a woman from the hidden kingdom of Fethiera, which is in Greenland. Fethiera made its first appearance in Flash Comics 71 back in May of 1946 in the Hawkman feature, where Hawkman visited this race of bird people, and he would return subsequently to check in on them, help them remain hidden from humans. A human scientist, Fred Cantrell, goes there, falls in love with one of the natives, and Norda Cantrell becomes Northwind, his son, godson to Hawkman. Then we see in the middle Green Lantern, the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott from Earth 2, his first appearance in All-American Comics 16 back in July of 1940, created by Martin Nodell and Bill Finger. He had found an emerald ring that was explained later had the power of the Star Heart, which was when the Guardians of the Universe sent all the mystical energy from Earth 1 to Earth 2 in the form of the Star Heart. He carved a lantern or somebody carved a lantern in a ring. He carved the ring out of the lantern and became Green Lantern. His weakness was to wood. And he also had the ability to phase through walls. So usually, like, the way that he would be defeated in his early adventures is some thug would hit him over the head with a 2x4 or a baseball bat. He is a founding member of the Justice Society of America. And in issue number 7, his own quarterly series at the time, which ran for 38 issues, he continued to appear in All-American Comics through issue 102. And also came back as a member of the Justice Society later on and was in the Justice Society through issue 57. It's later revealed that he was briefly married to a villainess of his, Thorn, in her civilian identity of Rose Canton, and she has twins. Unbeknownst to him, she leaves with them and puts them up for adoption. One of them is Obsidian, who we've seen previously, and the other is the next character here, the green-skinned young lady with the white top, Jade. Her first appearance, like Northwind, All-Star Squadron 25. Jenny Lee Hayden, and she has in her body and a jewel on the palm of her hand, which is later revealed to be the Star Heart, which gives her essentially the same powers as her dad, the ability to project objects through this green light, and she also has a weakness to wood. So by this time, Green Lantern's found out that that's his daughter. Now, later on, Green Lantern married another one of his nemesis, Molly Main, who had taken on the villainous identity Harlequin, basically to get his attention. And they were happily married for many years up until this point. And we're only going to be talking about the history of the characters up until 1985-86 when these stories take place, because obviously all of these characters much more convoluted histories going forward. Then I'm not sure if we're seeing anything specific with these crumbling cathedral tops. We see a kind of prehistoric scene, it appears, maybe. And then we go back to the New Teen Titans and the Outsiders together with Starfire, Halo, and Metamorpho. And then 30th Century Legion of Superheroes. We had already met Brainiac 5 and Dream Girl, who's being thrown, ass over tea kettle here. And then we have 3 other characters that we see. And these are the final 3 characters that we're introduced to in this issue. From left to right, in the green top, kind of partially obscured, is Shrinking Violet, Salo Digby from the planet Imsk. She made her first appearance in Action Comics 276, created by Jerry Siegel and Jim Mooney, which was also the first appearance of a lot of other Legionnaires, Sunboy, Bouncing Boy, Brainiac 5, Phantom Girl, and Triplicate Girl. She has the power to shrink very small. She develops a romantic relationship, which most Legionnaires do, because as I've said before, they probably needed dates to the Legion prom, with Duplicate Boy, who was not a member of the Legion, but was a member of the, what was the name of his, Duplicate Boy, who was a member of the Heroes of Lawler? Duplicate Boy. Heroes of Lawler, yes. They fall in love, and she's dating him. Now, what had happened early in the night, about 3 years before this, it was found out that she had been replaced by a Durlan spy by the name of Yera. And nobody really noticed it until they discovered that Yera was showing affection for Colossal Boy, who always had an unrequited crush on Shrinking Violet. And then she returns. She had been imprisoned. They rescue her, and kind of makes her character a little more jaded. Now, in the Star uniform, the black with the white spots, that is Starboy, Tom Caller from the planet Xanthu. His first appearance was in Venture Comics 282 in March of 1961. He's on a rocket ship that passes through the tail of a comet that gives him powers essentially akin to Superboy's. However, those powers fade, and the power that he's left with is the power of density control. He can make things very heavy. And there was a story in the Legion lore where he killed someone in self-defense, but the Legion had a very strict no killing policy, so he was kicked out of the Legion. He is in a romantic relationship with Dream Girl, who we see here, and they leave, join the Legion of Substitute Heroes, and then eventually earn their way back into the Legion. And then the final character we're going to be introduced to in issue number 4 on the ground here in the red top is Ultra Boy, whose first appearance was in Superboy 98 in July of 1962, where he comes back to Superboy's time, and in order to prove himself as worthy of membership for the Legion, he has to uncover Superboy's identity. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Kurt Swan, and his origin is that he was swallowed by a giant space whale, which makes perfect sense because his name is Joe Na. He's from the planet Rimbor. So the radiation inside this giant space whale, and they actually, space whales that the Legion had well before Star Wars Rebels, because one also cost Lightning Lad his arm for a while. It got better. He has the ability, he had his abilities akin to Superboy's, but he can only use one at a time. But what makes him valuable is that he doesn't have X-ray vision. No. He has Pentravision, which has the ability to also see through lead. But he has the same strength and invulnerability as Superboy, but he can't use his strength and invulnerability at the same time. He also has super speed. He can only choose one power at a time and has to switch between them, which makes for an interesting plot device. And he was romantically linked at the time to Phantom Girl. We go back to our the backbone of our story, where the Monitor is attacked by Harbinger. You see her dark eyes, which we saw when she was when one of her embodiments was possessed by a shadow demon in issue number 1. And she's kind of torn. Don't let me do this. I love you. He commands me now, Monitor. His command is death. Right? So she falls. Pariah's like, what's going on? Monitor's dead. And we see the antimatter consuming yet another Earth. And Pariah, the end of all hope. He has seen death and dying. Universes crumble about him. Yet somehow he believed there was somewhere a plan, a way to fight it. Some hope yet realized. Now there is nothing. And the man called Pariah can only cry. And we see as the antimatter is consuming everyone on Earth 1 and Earth 2 must now die. Everything becomes nothing. But there's still 8 more issues of the series, so you know that something's going to happen. And we're going to be back next week with another episode as we're going to go through issue number 5. And, you know, get yourself a tall drink and get yourself comfortable for the issue number 5, because there are a ton of characters that we're introduced to. So as I said before in this series, I recommend if you have read the story, you might want to like kind of watch this video, go through it, and then go back and reread it with maybe a little more knowledge and understanding of the characters that you see. I hope that you're enjoying these videos. Please comment down below. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.